Okay, Michael, so I could talk about last night's game between Tottenham and Ajax.
Oh, yeah, where they won.
I could talk about the game before that between Liverpool and Barcelona.
Oh, yeah, where they won. I just realised that me saying they won means absolutely... I do know who won. The Liverpool beat Barcelona 4-0 and Tottenham beat Ajax 3-2?
Yes. The Liverpool did beat Barcelona 4-0 and Ajax did lose to Tottenham. Last minute goal from Lucas Moura, but since we are a film podcast, I think it's only correct if we talk about the upcoming movies in the next decade. Every Christmas. Disney released this list earlier this week. So December the 17th, 2021, Avatar 2.
Beautiful.
December the 16th, 2022, Untitled Star Wars. December 22nd, 2023, Avatar 3.
Yeah, of course.
December 20th, 2024, Untitled Star Wars.
Yeah.
December 19th, 2025.
Wait, let me guess.
Avatar 4. Yeah. So, sorry.
That's okay. I wasn't going to guess that anyway.
Oh. Do you want to guess what's next?
I was going to guess Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas 2.
No. Untitled Star Wars.
Okay, Untitled Star Wars, that makes sense.
2026. Yeah. And in 2027 in December.
Avatar 5.
Avatar 5, yes.
Okay, I honestly wasn't sure if there was an Avatar 5. There we go. Okay.
Yes, so, and those will be December 18th, 2026.
After that is titled Star Wars.
Yes. December 18th, 2026 for Untitled Star Wars, and December 17th, 2027 for Avatar 5. So they've got the exact day planned out for 7 movies in the next decade, all the way up to 2027.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out relatively recently at the cinema and see if they still hold up upon a second watch. I am your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the release of John Wick 3. What's the subtitle, Luke?
Parabellum?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, which for those who don't know their Latin, basically means in the middle of a war. Of course, antebellum means before a war, and that's why we say the American antebellum South, referring to the South before the Civil War. So there we go. And I think that was useful for you too, Luke, because I understand that you don't learn Latin up in those northern schools, do you?
No, I didn't go to a private school.
No, so. Yeah, unlike me.
No, I mean, that is the stereotype, though.
No, yeah. But I just know a bit of Latin because of, you just see it around, don't you? It's just there. And sometimes you pick it up, sometimes you don't. Anyway, but yeah, we're looking at John Wick 1 and 2, which, am I right in saying that they don't have subtitles? Or subcaptions, or whatever you call them.
Okay, so John Wick is referred to, initially it was just John Wick, but then it was retroactively titled John Wick Chapter 1.
Yes.
And so John Wick 2 was called John Wick Chapter 2.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, so Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about John Wick, or maybe I should say a thing or four, seeing as it is two films. So a thing or four about John Wick's Chapters 1 and 2.
Oh, I thought we were going to do 1 then 2.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that does make sense, actually, now I think about it. Yeah, just talk about the first one first, Luke.
Okay, so John Wick, also titled John Wick Chapter 1, is a 2014 American neo-noir action thriller film directed by Chad Stahelski. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Written by Derek Kolstad. It stars Keanu Reeves, Michael Nyqvist, Alfie Allen, Adrian Palacki, Bridget Moynihan, Dean Winters, Ian McShane, John Leguizamo, and William Dafoe. It was released on September 19th, 2014, and Michael, do you want to have a go at the box office?
I don't think it made over 500 million.
Oh, sorry, I said box office. Well, you can do the box office first, but...
Oh, yeah. Usually we do budget, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you what, I'll do budget. I don't think it cost that much. I don't know, but I think it must have cost quite a bit. 35 million. It's going to be less.
You know what, that's a decent guess. Okay. Between 20 and 30.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Now time to royally screw up with the thing. Like I said, I don't think it made 500 million. I think it probably made more than 200 million. I really want to go for 300 million box office.
You know what?
It's perfect. I got it back. If anything, I got it too correct, didn't I?
The first guess was, like I said, quite good, and I had my hopes up for the box office, Michael. You just trampled those hopes.
Yeah, that's a shame. I'm sorry. I'll just leave. 300
million? Really? In this economy?
I think it made 300,000.
88.8 million.
Okay, yeah, there we go. That's
Yeah, it's pretty bad, Michael. It's pretty bad.
I just always think these things make more money than they do. I guess I'm an optimist.
Well, no matter how much you screw up the box office, we always had nitpicks of films.
Yeah, but also, Luke, what you're forgetting is, did you like this film?
Yeah. I did like it. It was okay. Yeah, it was more than okay.
No, yeah, I thought this film was good.
Yeah,
but no matter how much we thought a film was good...
Oh, wow, you just cooked me.
We always have nitpicks, don't we, Luke? How many nitpicks have you got?
How many have I got? That is a good question. Well, it's not really a good question.
It's a very functional question. It's very useful.
I have 4.
I have 6. So, there you go. Yeah, Luke, you go first.
One of them might be one I'd left out of the nitpicks and put in the plot because it's just so big.
Okay, maybe.
Anyway, first nitpick. This Assassin's Hotel, it has so many windows. Like, that's the thing, you're just surrounded on all sides by windows. Surely the one place you don't want windows is an Assassin's Hotel, just because of the general, chicanery.
Yeah,
that can go
or
on those places.
Bulletproof windows. Yeah, that might be, a bit of world building. They'd have that in the Assassin's Hotel. Also, question, I wonder, I assume the hotel can't cater exclusively to assassins, because you'd think, like, if it was, then the police would kind of pick up on that. They'd be like, hey boss, I tried to check my in-laws into town, and they couldn't get a room at this hotel. They said they weren't assassins, so they weren't allowed in. Do you think we should check it up? Nah. That's my impression of some bosses, some cops.
Well, yeah, they can just say, unfortunately, we don't have any rooms available.
Yeah, I guess that would work. But maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe it wouldn't go noticed. I like to think that all things would go noticed eventually, and it'd be like, it just seems like there's no normal people in that hotel. But I guess the other thing is, this film kind of seems to establish that, like, all sorts of different people can be assassins, so maybe that's how it works out. Anyway, next one.
Okay, my next one. Okay, so this is a nitpick on that girl. I haven't put her name down. I literally just put girl escaped too easily.
Is it the I feel like I should know her name, but...
She's called Perkins.
Perkins, that is it, yeah.
That's her name, Perkins. So obviously she's captured, she's handcuffed, and obviously the person who she's captured and handcuffed by is meant to be an assassin, someone who is typically very good in situations like this, but she just breaks out so easily and kills him. Like, it was too easy. At least give me a bit of a fight.
No, yeah, exactly, yeah. And also, I kind of think to myself, like, because I've heard about people learning to dislocate their thumbs so they can escape from handcuffs. I would almost think that's something that, like, every assassin would learn to do and kind of would be, like, an assumed skill for them to have.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, like, so I would just think, they probably... I don't know if... I was thinking about this. I don't know whether or not they put John Wick in handcuffs. The bit when they capture him and they're, the villain's monologuing a bit. I don't know if they had him in handcuffs then, or if they kind of did something else. But either way,
they just tied his hands together.
Yeah, which is probably a better way of doing it. So yeah, he shouldn't have used handcuffs in the first place. And like you say, even when she had escaped, she rinsed him.
She did. Anyway, next up. Okay, so this is when they are, I guess, capturing John Wick or have him captured. They try to suffocate him instead of just shooting him.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're right.
Why did they do that? Suffocating, it's harder. Like, there's a chance of him escaping. Well, yeah. I mean, there's not a high chance, but, like, just fucking shoot him.
No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that is true.
Should have done that. Yep. Next one. Right at the end, I found this quite funny. It's the final battle. Well, it's not a battle, really. Final action scene between Viggo and John Wick. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just starts raining as soon as John Wick jumps out of the car. It's great. So,
yeah, I know. The rain really had a sense of thematic tension. I didn't actually notice it. No, I didn't have that. No, that's a very good point.
Literally, it just started. It was dry. Nobody was getting rain, and all of a sudden, it's absolutely pouring down out of nowhere. Yeah, it was quite funny. Anyway, what are your nitpicks?
All right, so my one. This first one, it's a bit iffy in that it's more of like a character nitpick. I was just thinking that John Leguizamo, he really could have done a John Wick a solid if he would have just agreed to work on the car, and then obviously they wouldn't have rode off, and then it could have avoided the entire plot. So he could have been like, "Hey, John Wick, I'm working on the car, so when he comes to collect it, you want to just kill him or something?" But he didn't. And yeah, I mean, you could say that was John Leguizamo a bit confused in the moment, but I like to still include that. And then this is another big one. Why didn't they just keep the guy's son in the hotel? Because the way the hotel works, it's like Sanctuary in the olden days, or, Amnesty in an embassy. You can just live there indefinitely. And I would think, that's the most logical thing you do. And it was weird to me that nobody even brought it up.
Yeah, I guess.
So, yeah. And also, so I don't really know why he doesn't wear body armor in this. There was a particular moment, like, I guess, obviously sometimes it would be disadvantageous. I don't know what the opposite to disadvantageous, what that would be, but it would be awkward to wear body armor, maybe because it would make it clear that he's an assassin because they'd be able to see the body armor or something. But there were several contexts where he was literally going into a fight and you were just thinking, just put on some body armor, and he gets shot and, he's bleeding. And I'm like, you could really do yourself a favor by wearing body armor, Johnny. And then, okay, this one's a big one, actually. Why did Willem Dafoe shoot the pillow instead of the girl? Because, of course, this is in reference, of course, to the scene you were talking about where John Wick's in his room and an assassin is sneaking up on him, and Willem Dafoe is looking in with a sniper rifle. And in the original, the first watch of the film, you'd kind of think to yourself, oh, okay, so he's, about to assassinate John Wick. And then maybe you'd think, okay, he misses and due to kind of confusion over the girl being there, and that's why he shoots the pillow instead. Of course, the second time you watch it around, you're like, oh, okay, so he shot the pillow to alert John Wick. But then you think, well, hold on a minute, why didn't he just shoot the assassin?
Okay, so two reasons, I think. It could be either one. Number one, he was working with John Wick already at that point. And you're saying, why didn't he shoot the assassin? Well, he's not allowed to, because then he'd be killing somebody on continental property.
Well, see, I was wondering about that, and I don't know, because I would assume that if somebody attempts to kill you, then you're allowed to fight back in the continental property.
No,
I don't know.
But Willem Dafoe wasn't he wasn't being attacked, was he?
Yeah, right. Okay, I got you.
Right.
Oh, actually, that's a good question, though. Technically speaking, he wasn't on continental property, was he, Luke? She was on continental property, so they never clarify that, do they?
He still would have killed her while she was on continental property. So I guess that's how it comes into it.
What are you, his lawyer?
Yeah. And next up, it could have also been that he was initially at that point going to kill John Wick. Maybe he was thinking about breaking the rules, but then he saw that woman walk in and was like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna shoot him," and she's gonna claim it.
So he wanted the bounty for himself at that point, is what you're saying? Yeah,
that is possible. That is something I thought of, but it's more likely the first option.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's fine. Well done, Luke. You did a good job. And other one, this might be the one you have. You said that there was one that you think that might be under the plot. I'm wondering this. I could see this being it. But why didn't I can't remember his name? But the mob boss dad. Vigo, yeah. Why didn't he just antagonize John Wick a tiny bit later? He could have just been on the helicopter and said, "Hey, John Wick, I killed Willem Dafoe. Sorry, had to do it." But instead, he does it before he's leaving, so to create the maximum possibility of John Wick hunting him down at the last second.
Well, obviously, what he wanted to do was to lure John Wick there, so Perkins would kill him, and so he presumably thought that Perkins would kill John Wick, and that John Wick would have no way of knowing where he was going. So,
I can see you've been thinking about this.
Well, it can be explained. He can. Yes, retroactively, obviously, he would have done things differently, but I don't think
so it's you're identifying with him in the moment, and what he wanted in that moment was okay.
It wasn't completely stupid.
Yeah. All right. And the final one. Since I'm gonna die anyway, if I was Vigo, I'd rather be shot than beaten to death. He's like, I don't want to use guns. I want to fight you with my hands. But it's very clear he's not going to win. I mean, he's like this old, out of shape mob boss. It's pretty much just going to die. And you think well, if you're just going to die anyway, I'd rather just be shot than be beaten up, because being beaten to death.
Yeah, but does he have a gun at that stage? So
well, well, I get what you're saying. So your logic is, and this is what I think people would say, at least he's got no chance at all if it's down to guns, but he's got some chance if it's a fight. But I would think that chance is so little, it's not worth the extra hassle, I mean, if
he's
anything, it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort to kind of stay alive. You just think, wouldn't it be easier? Or, how about this? He could have ran away. That would be a good, because I would think, okay, he's got as much chance of just legging it as he's got taking on John Wick in a one-on-one fight, because,
he just squares up to John Wick and immediately just starts running away, in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, that would be good. Yes. You know what, actually, in many ways, this film was reminiscent of the Grand Budapest Hotel. That would be a good crossover, if the Grand Budapest Hotel was one of these hotels. Anyway, so that's all the nitpicks, so...
Oh, what's the director of the Grand Budapest?
Wes Anderson.
Thomas Anderson? No.
Wes Anderson. Thomas Anderson, someone else who's got a similar name.
I know, they shouldn't have the same surname, but yes. I would like to see a Wes Anderson remake of John Wick.
Yes, I would like to see a Wes Anderson remake of everything. I saw a Wes Anderson. It was a sketch about Wes Anderson in Saturday Night Live, and I can't remember what it was a film for, but
I think it was a horror film.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know. Anyway, so plot.
The plot. Yes, actually, I need to explain the plot.
Yes, you do.
First off, so I guess it's fairly simple. So basically, John Wick is grieving. His wife is dead. He gets a dog, but unfortunately, while he's filling up his car with some gas, a couple of Russian gangsters see his car, want to buy it. John Wick says no, so they steal his car and kill his dog. And the dog obviously serves as a memento of his recently deceased wife. And so then he goes on a rampage trying to kill this Russian gangster.
Yes.
So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's so. What do you have to say about the plot, Luke? Do you have lots of things to say about the plot?
Yeah, I mean, well, do you want to start or should I start?
Well, actually, I did want to say just one minor thing. I noticed that this film, it's got the old classic start at the end trick, where the first scene is actually also the last scene. So it's always nice to have one of those.
That was really necessary. Like,
no, yeah, it was.
Yeah, you kind of, when that happens, it's like, I don't know, there's some reason for it, but in this one, it's like, it's not really a reason for that. Yeah, I couldn't think of one. It's not like...
Yeah, especially seeing as like, all he does is look at a video of his wife, and yet he's constantly looking at that video of his wife throughout the entire film, so...
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I just want to talk about the concept, I guess, of this movie. So, obviously, he's out for revenge, and, you know, he's trying to kill the guy who stole his car and killed the dog. But it's also an excuse to let out his anger after the death of his wife. So it's kind of a little different to your standard revenge story, because he's justified himself a motivation for, like, okay, I can kill these people because they killed my dog and stole my car. But you get the sense, because of the death of his wife, he wants to let out that anger anyway.
Yeah, well, I think also what's kind of weird is that, unlike a lot of other revenge stories, from the end...
Well, that took you a while, didn't it?
Yeah, I know, yeah. From the end of the antagonist perspective, it was interestingly or curiously impersonal. Of course, usually in revenge stories, you know, you've got your bad guy, and your bad guy's really got it in for the protagonist, so he does something to, you know, mess up the protagonist. But in this, the antagonist doesn't actually consider John Wick to be relevant to him at all, and he kind of, it's curious how unnecessary the instigating incident was for John Wick's entire thing. Like, basically the guy's just like, hey, you know, I want your car, you know, and then John Wick calls him a bitch, I guess, and then literally, you know, he shows up.
That's the thing, he doesn't even call him a bitch. He says, bitch.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, so it implies he's a bitch. So yeah, and then he shows up and like beats him up and steals his car, but he literally just does it for such a minor, minuscule reason. And you got to think, like, I mean, that's got to suck, because if you're gonna have some kind of horrible, crazy assassin man chasing you, you'd want it to be for something which is actually worth it. And it's kind of like, it's pretty disappointing for Mr. What's his name? What's the kid's name?
Fucking Theon.
Vladimir. Theon, yeah, it is Theon. So it's pretty disappointing for Theon that all he was doing was just having a bit of fun with the lads. Just thought, hey, let's go steal that guy's car, kill his dog, and it spiraled out of control.
It did. I do like the concept though. Like he wants to kill obviously some rich guy's son, and not like your stereotypical bad guy. You know, he's like normally he would be going after Donald Trump, but the guy he's trying to kill is Donald Trump Jr. Which,
to be honest, is fair enough. I think also the other thing is actually that Theon, which is what we're going to call him now, is not an enduring antagonist throughout the film, in that, like, basically, in a lot of other films, it would be, you know, the guy's out for revenge, and the antagonist is constantly prodding at him, constantly kind of trying to take him out, constantly trying to kill him. And in this film, obviously the dad is trying to kill John Wick, but the dad's only doing it out of essentially love for his son. You know, the dad's situation, and that's kind of the interesting, like, the dad's situation is very interesting, because the dad isn't saying, like, I really hate John Wick, or, you know, I want John Wick dead. His central position is that his son made a huge mistake, and therefore his son kind of almost deserves to die in that, he's poked the sleeping snake. What about that? Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
poked the sleeping snake.
I don't know. He poked the bear, and therefore he needs to die. But he's like, well, I'm not just going to let my son die, not unless someone threatens me with a gun or something. So it's kind of like, and then obviously the kid, Theon, is just kind of hiding for the entire thing. And it does make John Wick more morally interesting, because obviously there is a point at which he's basically just hunting down a scared kid. What do you think?
No, yeah, it is interesting. Well, like I said, normally in these movies, he's going after the mob boss. This time he's going after the mob boss's son. That's why I made the comparison to Donald Trump Jr. But yeah, like, you make a good point. He is just a dumb kid who made a stupid mistake, but he's not showing any remorse, is he? It does make him interesting.
Yeah. Well, his last words are, of course, "It was just a fucking," and then he gets shot.
Exactly.
Also, actually, I did like I don't know where else we're going to bring this up. The reincorporation of the "everything has a price" line. Of course, Theon says, "Can I buy your car?" And John Wick says, "It's not for sale." And Theon says, "Everything has a price." And I think he said "bitch" as well, but he said everything has a price. And then later on, when John Wick is killing Theon's henchman, he calls him up and he says, "Everything has a price." Oh, because the price is that he'll be killed.
Yes. No, good callback. That good foreshadowing. Yes. Is it foreshadowing? Maybe not. It's just a callback.
Yes. Also, I liked the fact that his actions, or like his big proof of what makes him a real badass, is precisely what caused the Russian organized crime syndicate to become so dominant. So he basically says, he wanted to leave and I gave him an impossible task. And because John Wick achieved this impossible task, that's the entire reason why we're so powerful. And again, I think that kind of plays back into the idea of like there is a curious mutual respect between the mob boss and John Wick. Or obviously John Wick, was not only a complete badass, but he was able to actually, the crime family owes their success to John Wick's badassery. And then, of course, that adds an additional poetic dimension to him being so instrumental in taking them down.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is interesting. Like this, again, it's just so different from other action movies where John Wick, for whatever reason, would be going after the crime boss, Vigo. So yeah, it's a nice twist with this movie. It's appreciated. But you mentioned before, obviously, that John Wick killed a lot of people, I guess, did this impossible task for Vigo, this mob boss. And that, I guess, is a good segue to talk about this massive coincidence that I was referring to before. That I was going to make a nitpick, but that was
I mean, coincidences are your thing.
Yes, well, this is too big to put in the nitpick file. Like, this entire movie is caused by this massive coincidence of John Wick bumping into these Russian gangsters at a gas station. Like, that's it.
Maybe it was the Force.
Maybe it was. Like, if it was just like 30 seconds later, then none of this would have happened. It's like, and they're in the middle of fucking nowhere as well. He's I assume in the middle of New Jersey, in the countryside. Because Theon said before he'd been in Atlantic City, and obviously was driving back up to New York. So somewhere in the middle of New Jersey, not even in a dense area, and they managed to run into each other. It's crazy.
Yes, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Indeed.
And then they don't even kill him when they steal his car. They kill the dog. They don't kill John Wick.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I think maybe you could say that it's a lot like, what's that thing I'm thinking of? There's an idea in. Oh, I know what it is. It's basically, so any time like a armed robber goes into a grocery store, they don't really want to kill the clerk. They're just brandishing it around. And if they actually were forced to kill the clerk, they might be slightly compromised about it. And you could say, oh, well, maybe Theon, because I don't know, do we see Theon liberally killing people in this?
No, you don't.
No, yeah.
He is...
So it might be the case that he's, because obviously he does kill the dog. Having said that, there are some people out there, Luke, I know this might disturb you as a dog owner, there are some people out there who consider dog lives to be less valuable than human lives. So it could be possible that he was actually thinking, hey, this guy's just a loser, and basically he's not even worth... Yeah, actually, yeah. I always wonder that, like, I always. How does he get all his money? Is it just from taking those
contracts?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it just seems like it's like such a lucrative career that I feel like there must be some kind of like assassin inflation. You know, like because there's so much money in this.
We'll
business,
get onto
apparently.
that in the next movie, but everybody in New York's apparently an assassin. But yeah, I mean, like the thing is with Theon, like he's obviously a bitch ass kid who's insecure about the fact that he's not as good as his dad, or his dad thinks he's a bit of a
loser,
bit of a bitch. I keep coming back to Donald Trump Jr. I think it is a good comparison. Just any son of this like wealthy, rich guy who obviously isn't that smart. But yeah, so he's capable of just killing somebody, I think, because they pissed him off, because he wants to show how tough he is, and how you don't want to mess with him. So yeah. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, do you remember though when Theon took over Winterfell, and he was actually quite reluctant to kill the local maester there, and he had to be goaded into it by his men. So maybe he's not as
I think that's a different character.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, I'm thinking of a different Theon.
Yeah. No, how does this character compare to the Theon in Game of Thrones?
Theon is one of the better characters in Game of Thrones, but he's one of the characters who dies in season 8, episode 3. And
spoilers.
It's yeah, sorry. You know what? Actually, my mother listened to an episode of this. She listened. I think she listened to the. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So
which episode?
And obviously, I think it was the Passion of the Christ episode. She said because she was like, what's the name? And I was like, oh, I guess I'll tell her. I can't be like no, even though I mean, obviously we swear a lot on this, don't we, Luke? But I was like, yeah. I told her the name, and she was like, oh, the Passion of the Christ one has like. She only said that, and then I heard her listening to my voice later on, so I was just like, okay, I'm just going to ignore this, whatever, fine, I don't care. It's not like I'm insecure about my own voice or anything. But anyway, yeah, but she watches Game of Thrones, but she hasn't been watching season 8 as diligently with me.
So you didn't ask her what she thought of it?
No. What, of the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, well, she was literally watching it because I said I had the podcast this evening, and she was literally watching it as I was going upstairs to eat my dinner. I haven't actually seen her since, so there we go, Luke. That's why I haven't asked her.
It's very important to know what she thinks. She's a key demographic.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one we rely on. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but so basically what I'm saying is that, yeah, Theon, he's a pretty good character in Game of Thrones. Famously, he gets his dick cut off.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yes, so it's I don't know.
He went dickless for Michael Chiklis.
Yes, he did. We should watch a Michael Chiklis movie and go dickless for him.
Okay.
Anyway, okay, so
went a bit off track.
What else? Okay, so I guess we should reiterate your fundamental point about how it is a bit of a coincidence, or have we kind of said everything about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a massive coincidence, like a massive coincidence.
Yes.
And John Wick, the fucking guy's dad as well. It just adds another fucking 10%. Or not 50% onto the coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence-ometer.
Yeah, coincidence, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how much there is to say about that, apart from it's just crazy. But I guess you just kind of have to accept it. You have to go, well, that's the way it is.
That is the way it is, yes, definitely. Sometimes shit
that's
happens.
how it be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, apart from that, how much else do you have to say about the plot?
I think we should talk about the International Assassins Hotel. Because
yes, okay. I've got something which can play into that, but you say your spiel first, and then I'll finish with my spiel.
Well, here's
and that's
the thing.
The last thing I have to say.
This movie, obviously, it's not very complicated, and it's an action movie, but it's very stripped down, to the part.
If it were an Avril Lavigne film, Avril Lavigne song, it would not be complicated.
No, it would not be complicated.
It would be Hello Kitty.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah, it's like it's bare bones basically, and then they add in this International Assassins Hotel and all this world building as well, which is, on the one hand, it's a cool concept, I like it, but on the other, it seems like, I don't know, it's something that should be introduced in a sequel. Obviously, you could say, well, I didn't know a sequel was happening, so, if they had this idea, just put it in this movie, but it does seem like, oh, well, this is a rather big thing, just to introduce it, casually. There's a fucking International Assassins Hotel. I thought this was just a movie about a guy going on a revenge tour against fucking Theon. But now there's International Assassin Hotels.
Or as he was called after the events of season 3, no fucking Theon.
Oh, was that true?
Because he can't fuck anymore.
Is that actually? Was that actually?
No, that's not. He's not actually called that, but he could have been.
Oh, that would be quite savage. the Game of Thrones, isn't it? But yeah, no. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's like I said, it's a nice concept, but it does feel a bit out of place considering the previous hour before it's introduced. I don't know. If you agree.
Well, I was kind of thinking to myself that something about this film, I almost felt like it should have almost like a supernatural element to it, or maybe not supernatural, but grand conspiratorial, like for example, Assassin's Creed. That's what I was kind of thinking of, and that's obviously quite a logical comparison because it's about assassins and it's about this massive order, and you almost feel like there's this idea of for eons this guild of assassins have been helping each other through these sacred hotels, blah blah blah. And I was thinking that it kind of feels, and again, there's a huge contrast, I guess, between the story itself, which is of course not only a very personal, intimate story for John Wick, but also such a seemingly insignificant story from the perspective of the antagonist, who it was just some guy antagonizing some bozo, and then it's contrasted against this really huge world building, which it doesn't, and I guess in a way it kind of doesn't play into the story that much that this big assassins guild existed. I think maybe they could have hinted at it. I don't know. Yeah,
that would have been good.
I do generally agree with you.
Yeah, it does kind of come out of nowhere. Like I said, it's just a simple story about a guy trying to get his revenge, on this bitch ass kid, and then we're now in this international assassins hotel with its own currency, and it's a secret society and everything, and it does go in another direction to how the previous movie was going. So those are my thoughts. On it.
All I wanted to say actually is just on a vaguely similar note, just a slight thing on the rules. I guess you could say that he was being intentionally inconsistent. I was just thinking it's kind of funny that the Vigo kills Willem Dafoe because Willem Dafoe broke his kind of honor by accepting a contract and then directly contradicting it by actually helping John Wick, and that was Vigo's justification for killing him. He was like, he broke the cardinal rule by accepting a contract and then not actually following through with it. And yet at the same time, Vigo literally pays somebody to break one of the other cardinal rules, which is you don't do business in the I can't remember what the actual name of the hotel is. I got a special name. I think it starts with a C. It's the
Continental.
You don't do business on the continental property. So he's a bit of a hypocrite. So I guess maybe you could say he was a bit angry because his son was dead, but that's no excuse. I will say actually I did like that there was this idea of honor, and that you couldn't just have any sneaky business happening. And there were a few kind of... Actually, I don't know if this happened as much in this. I think I might be thinking about the next film. But I think it's mostly next film. Like the idea of characters who are antagonistic towards each other meeting in the Continental and not really having any beef. But I don't think that happens as much in this film. But it is kind of interesting that there is this dimension of, obviously they're assassins, but then they're professionals and they have standards and courtesy and honor. Which again, in many ways kind of contrasts with the much more rugged and brutal foundations of the conflict presented in the film.
Yes. No, that's a good point. Do you want to talk about the end bit now of the movie?
Yes. I don't have anything specific to say about that, but if you say something, I can just probably return the serve or whatever they say.
Yeah, I do think it does get a bit messy towards the end. Maybe not messy.
Yeah.
Maybe there's two more characters that are introduced as important characters, Perkins and William Dafoe. And they play roles in the movie. And then there's also Winston. I think that's the guy who runs the Continental. He has a role there as well. And it does feel out of step with the rest of the film, because you've got a bunch of characters doing stuff, and compared to the previous 2/3 of the film, which was literally just John Wick shooting people. I agree.
It does. It definitely does get a bit more messy. It almost, I think, weirdly in a way, got slightly unconventional, I guess, in that obviously the kid, Theon, our main antagonist, is killed not at the end. He's not the final obstacle. It's not quite No Country for Old Men, but it is a bit of a subversion of our expectations as far as you'd expect the story to go.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have obviously the fact that our secondary antagonist, this woman, is just kind of killed execution style in a way that I guess is quite unexpected. I mean, when I watched it the second time round, I was like, oh yeah, cool, she that makes sense. But I wasn't really seeing it coming the first time around. That may have just been because I wasn't really thinking. But
and she just does walk into it, like literally. She just walked into getting shot. Like, surely she knew what was going to happen. It was a bit of a shit death, that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of just, I guess it's just to establish that they mean business, fam.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, that's all I have to say on the plot, really.
Yeah. So the ending, I think, nothing really to say.
Yeah, no. It was a nice ending with him getting the dog, you know.
He got a little dog,
nice,
didn't he?
You know, comes full circle.
Actually, yeah, I think maybe it's worth noting. I mean, I know we kind of already tacitly acknowledged this, but the fact that Theon does literally, you know, kill a dog. I was going to say execution style. It's not quite execution style, but, you know,
he just punches
smashes a dog in. Yeah. Is, I guess some people would probably find that upsetting, and I'm not necessarily bringing it up as like a trigger warning or something, but I'm just saying, you know, it's, you could say that it's a nice in its, you know, not pulling any punches. It's showing something quite brutal and quite upsetting, which kind of does add some extra stakes. Because obviously, I mean, I'm not even a dog owner, and it was, you know, quite upsetting for me. Were you, as a dog owner, more upset than me?
Yeah, I don't know how upset you were, but yeah, I mean, certainly the first time you watch it, you're like, oh no, that cute dog, it's dead. But yeah, I think it's a good move actually, because obviously, as we all know, humans are more sympathetic towards animals than their fellow humans. So you make the bad guy kill a dog, everyone instantly hates him 10 times more if it just like killed, I don't know, his wife or his kid.
Yeah, have you seen Spike Lee's Old Boy?
Yes.
So you know the bit where he makes friends with a mouse?
Yes.
And then they take the mouse and serve it to him as a meal?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just bring that, so I don't know, and that was the moment when I was like, oh, this guy better fuck these people up. And
wait, is that Spike Lee's Old Boy or the original Old Boy?
Well, see, actually, you know what? I've been meaning to see the original Old Boy for a long time now, and I still haven't got around to doing it. But so I can tell you 100% it is from Spike Lee's Old Boy because I haven't seen the original Old Boy. But I can't say whether or not it does happen in the original Old Boy because I need to get around to watching it. I did have one other thing to say about the plot actually, which I didn't mention, but it's mostly a thing at the beginning. Some of the dialogue is a bit kind of, I guess you'd say it almost seems a bit too taking itself seriously. Like when Willem Dafoe's at the funeral and he goes in this little monologue, and it's like one of those moments where you're like, characters don't really talk like this. You know, people don't actually talk like this. Like, you know, if you think you're out of this, but if you go into the abyss, then you'll find that it pulls you in, and it's, you know, it's very very monologue. Yeah, very monologue-y. And it kind of jarred a bit with what felt like, I guess, because the thing that a lot of people say about this film is it's very, very brutal and very realistic. And it just doesn't use any fancy pantsiness. It's just pure walls to wall action. Action.
That is a great segue, Michael. Into action. So obviously we've talked about the plot for a bit, but this is the real reason why this movie is so popular, and it's what this movie is known for: the action. I'll start, I guess, with the action.
Yes.
These action scenes in this movie, they are very, very good, and the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is good. I am really enjoying this. Action scenes nowadays, there's just so much cutting, Michael. There's just so much like, oh, you don't know what's happening where. That is something that you do find with a lot of, not just like action movies, but other movies when there are action, or there is action going on. But in this movie, you got these wide action shots, no constant cutting, and yeah, it's really nice to see.
No, yeah, I agree. The action itself is all shot very well.
Yes, and that's the thing. This is why we did two movies, because obviously there's not much you can say about the action. Yeah, I mean, because all the action scenes are pretty similar. Because obviously, like, what can you do? John Wick shooting people, and then John Wick's kicking people. Like, there's not.
Although they did use some interesting scenarios or areas for it, and I think they kind of reuse this in the second one. But it's the old have a shootout in a disco.
Yeah, there's the
which,
disco.
To be honest, is also stolen from the original Terminator. Something about shooting out in a disco. It just works so well.
Yeah, that is true. And then at the end, when he's using his car to maneuver around the bad guys and shoot people, that was nice as well. But yeah, so the action obviously gets a big thumbs up, but there are still some moments, Michael, when he's killing guys and there's a bad guy that comes up right next to him and he's got a gun, and John Wick manages to I don't know, knock the gun out of his hands and then shoot him, or like there's bad guys and they're running at him with a knife, and you're like, wait, why didn't he have a gun? If he had a gun, he could easily have shot John Wick.
Yeah, I know. I was always thinking that for some reason, whenever they're aware of John Wick and they're, you know, far enough away that John Wick can't reach them, they've never got a gun, so they always have to run in. Whenever they do have a gun, they're always close enough to John Wick that he can just disarm them, and it's very funny.
Yeah, like just
and yeah, it is. Yeah,
there was the scene in the nightclub, and like it was one of the areas in which was brightly lit. Like it wasn't like in a dark place. It was, I think, in the lobby, and he kills like 8 people, I want to say. And like there's constantly guys with guns like rushing up to him and being like 2 feet away. I'm just like, just stand back, man. Just stand back and shoot. Like you don't need to be like that close to him. Your aim's surely not that bad.
Yes.
So I know, that is it's a shame, but I guess I'm not sure how if you can do better. Maybe you can't. Maybe that is just unfortunate realities when you're shooting these action scenes where one guy kills 8 people in like 30 seconds. You're gonna have situations in which, you know, the bad guys just do some stupid stuff, and you just gotta hope the audience doesn't notice because the action is so good that they're not questioning, wait, why did that guy do that? Why is he 2 feet away?
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously with us, we're analysing it in a bit more detail.
Yes, one of my pet peeves, which isn't in this film as much as I think it's probably in there a couple of times, but I didn't really notice it, is when somebody fights like 50 people at once, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be exciting because they're fighting 50 people at once, and you realise actually they're really only fighting like 2 people at once while everyone else dances around. In this film, it's slightly better because generally speaking, whenever, you know, he's usually fighting every single person who's close to him, and if, you know, other people come along, it's because they're running along around the corner. So while you do get the stupid stuff about them not just standing back and shooting him, at least you don't see guys dancing around doing nothing, which I do see in a lot of action films, especially when it's like, oh yeah, you know, how is he going to fight these 50 guys? And it's like, oh, he's going to fight them because, you know, most of them are just going to spend their time dancing around. But I have 3 bit broader criticisms of the action.
Okay.
Which I'd like to run by you, Luke. Well, one of them, it's not necessarily it's kind of criticism. It's something which I think might have improved the film, which is I wish they'd spent more time focusing on why he's so good at fighting, and particularly his preparation, because obviously No Country for Old Men is a very good film, and one of the scenes in it is the I can't remember his name actually, Anton Chigurh. He is going to shoot a bunch of Mexicans in a motel room. So what he does is he rents the motel room, or I don't know if it's called renting when it's a hotel, but he rents the hotel room that's exactly the same layout. He kind of goes in, he looks at the map, he says, oh, I want one. And then he goes in and he kind of tests the walls, and he like sees where it's strong, he works out where everything is. And then when he goes in, he kills everyone. And that's kind of entertaining because it doesn't feel like lucky. It's like, okay, so he planned everything out, he worked everything out. And I wish, again, and obviously you could say, well, you know, it's not what the film's about. I think it would have enhanced the action a bit if it was like, oh, okay, so he's not just lucky, he has a very clear idea of what he's going to do. But a lot of the time, for example, in the last scene, or not the last scene, but the scene where he goes after Theon for the final time, he says, you know, where's Theon? And Viggo Mortensen says, he's at a safe house. You know, he'll know you're coming. He's like, I don't care. And then basically, you know, we just see him, you know, some guy's walking along, and we just see John Wick step into scene, kill the guy, and the next thing we know, he's got a sniper rifle. It's like, well, you know, you don't get a scene of him working out where the soldiers are, or sorry, the henchmen are, planning out how he's going to do it, and it kind of feels a bit more hollow.
Yeah, you see, I'm fine with that because
yeah, I knew you'd disagree, Luke.
Because it's like the whole idea around John Wick is he's meant to be like a ghost, he's meant to be mysterious. So if you not knowing about his past and how he was so good at fighting, I don't mind, and I think it's actually a good thing, given what they're going for. But yeah, the preparation thing again, it's just like he, you know, from the bad guy's perspective, just shows what a danger he can be. So yeah, I'm fine with that.
But then on top of that, I think there's another problem, which is there are a couple of moments. I think there's at least a big one, which is when he's about to get killed by the people with the plastic bag, where he gets lucky. And one of my problems with a lot of action films is that we're told that these guys, they're, you know, fantastic, they're the best of the best, they're really good fighters, you know, nobody can defeat them. And yet you think, you know, we've watched this guy for not that long. I mean, you know, considering that he's apparently he's got a reputation, we're assuming he's done this for ages. And yet even in the short time we see him, there are loads of moments where you think he's pretty lucky. You know, at moments where he's just charging at someone with a car and he's being shot at and is fortunately not being hit. But obviously, you know, the most obvious example, when those people are about to kill him. And Sniper Ex Machina saves the day. It always reminds me of Batman, the animated series, when Batman is about to get shot by somebody and the gun jams. And I'm thinking to myself, that's annoying, because the whole thing about Batman is he's supposed to be a really good fighter. But if that gun hadn't jammed, he'd be dead. And the minute that you kind of introduce that idea of, well, and obviously, people say, well, luck is part of it. And obviously luck is part of it. But I think there's a degree of luck where you're like, okay, so this guy, he's not actually as great of a fighter as they say, because, I've only been watching him do his thing for an hour and a half. And in that hour and a half, he's been saved by a couple of Deus Ex Machinas already. So
yeah, that's a good point. Like, we don't want to see luck. Like, luck obviously can happen, but you're there to see how good John Wick is. So if there is luck, I don't like that either. It's kind of like, you got lucky there. We shouldn't be thinking that.
Yeah, and then this final one, it's going to be something which is going to become more relevant in the second film. But my fundamental problem with a lot of these unbeatable action films is that you do think you could just follow them around and just shoot them when they're not paying attention. Like, for example, actually, I don't know if I've got a good example for this moment, but there are moments when you just think, just follow him, just be a bit more tactical and just shoot him in the head when he's not expecting it. Don't always announce yourself. Don't make it clear you're going after him. Again, this becomes more obvious in the second films, but I was always thinking, like, that's really the problem with these unbeatable action heroes. When everybody's after them, it fails to suspend my disbelief that they don't get killed unless there's a very good reason why they're not getting killed. And sometimes I was just thinking, well, why don't they just, they've got all of these resources, just be a tiny bit more tactical about it. And obviously, the most obvious example, because the thing I've got written here is just follow them around and shoot them in the head when they're not paying attention. But for example, when he's wrestling loads of people, just get loads of guys with guns to stand 10 feet away from him. And when he's, incapacitated all the people he was wrestling, just have them all shoot at him, and he'd have no defense against that. Just say, when he's fighting in the hotel, if Viggo Mortensen, I can't remember what his actual surname was, if Viggo said, I want loads of men with guns all pointing at the front of the hotel, then what's John Wick going to do then? He'd probably just walk into it and then he'd just shoot at him and he'd be dead. So it's always, a bit hard to believe these unbeatable action heroes. And obviously, like I say, you might say, well, that's the point. Yes.
Like these movies then. These movies are meant to be fun. Like, they're not meant to be that realistic. Like, come on.
No, yeah. Well, I think, and for me, that's fine. I guess the problem is, I think you need to I think it would be good if there were moments when, for example, the people trying to kill him were really tactical, like they did do that. And we saw, like, John Wick, he's got some kind of plan, some clever plan that means that he stays a step ahead. And then we're like, oh, okay, so that's why they can't just, he's cleverer than you think. You can't just kill him the obvious way. And that's kind of my thought. So yeah, I do agree with you. Obviously, if you just had a film where the bad guy, the good guy just got, taken down very quickly because the people were so, just like, hey, just fire a bazooka at him when he, is driving along in his car, not expecting it, listening to his music. And obviously that would not be good. But, if you did have a moment where it was like, they clearly did something, not necessarily clever, but like a surefire way of killing him. Like one of those things where you think, oh, that's definitely going to kill him. And then he's able to somehow defeat it. And then you're like, oh, okay, so he really is the real deal. And then, so I think that's kind of it. There was not enough moments that made me like, okay, he's really fantastic. Because most of his, really, he's only got one move, which is fighting people at close quarters.
He can also shoot people from long range as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. But so I'll let him off. But
he's not that. I wouldn't call this a clever action movie. He doesn't really. John Wick isn't that clever. He's like, his main assets are obviously his determination, his focus, and all of that, as the bad guys say. There's nothing particularly, like I said, intelligent about any aspect, but it's just meant to be like fun. Yeah,
I agree. And that's the thing, it is fun. But I think for me, as you know, Luke, one of my goals in life is to make a good Mortal Kombat film.
You have many goals.
One of the reasons for that, it's because Mortal Kombat's a recognizable title, and I just want to make a martial arts film which has like none of the things that annoy me about martial arts films, just to see if I can do it. So no moments where you just got guys dancing around in the background doing nothing. Like every single moment I want to write the antagonist to be as not necessarily as clever as they could be, but like really clever, and like moments where you think, wow, surely he's not going to be able to defeat that, and then he does. And you're like, wow, that's cool. Okay. And that's why it's my goal. I'm sorry that I have goals.
Last in the action, I also like when they intercut the action scenes with like a bit of like Theon in the club, or at another point.
That's true. Actually,
smoking, like that was nice. I like that concept.
I think it enhanced what you were saying about him being kind of like a ghost.
Yes.
Because it shows how the other people are completely unaware. Like, I like the scene when the guy's like cooling. It's like, how's things down in the basement? And you just see a blood splatter on the frosted glass. And I thought that was a really effective, moment.
Yeah, that was nice.
Or shot.
So action, even though you point out some holes, still gets a big thumbs up.
Yes.
And I think we're ready to conclude, because that's about it.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, not too
I'll
long.
go first, because you talked for a bit. This movie, it's a well-made, competent movie. It's slick, it's satisfying, and obviously it's a bit of a twist, or a nice twist, on the stereotypical revenge story, because obviously he's going after the son of my boss. So and obviously his motivations are a little more complex than just this guy killed my wife, killed my kids. There's a little something more to it than that, which is appreciated. The action, I'll just talk about the plot. Obviously, it's really stripped down, apart from the Assassin's Hotel bit and the end, which the Assassin's Hotel, it's okay. I guess I'll land on okay at the end of the day. And the ending, I think it could have been better. I would like it if at the end of the movie I had thought that so John Wick gets the kid and the dad in a room together, and he basically makes the dad kill the kid. He's like, I'm going to kill one of you. Which one do you want me to kill? And the dad's basically makes him kill the son, because he recognizes that the son fucked up and he's just a worthless piece of shit. I don't know. I think that would have been good. That's what, when I watched it first time, that's where I hoped it was going.
You sick, disgusting man, making a father kill his own son.
It'd be a nice concept though, because obviously, there's action movies, you never have the rich guy's son who's just fucking, a twat. I don't know. What other word would you use to describe this guy?
A right wanker.
Right wanker, yes. They don't go after him, and so the dad's like, yeah, this guy, my son, he's a right wanker. Just kill him. Just fucking kill him. He deserves to die. That would have been interesting. But anyway, I am going. Obviously, the action, like I said, thumbs up. Bit of, some issues, but some issues are unavoidable, and it wasn't that clever. But that's not what this movie was going for, and I am fine with that. So all in all, Michael, I think it was an enjoyable film. It was good. I think I am going to give this I'm just looking at it. I think I'm going to give this a 7 or a 7.5 out of 10. I'll decide in a bit. Just you go first with your summary.
I'm also thinking a 7 as it happens. So I will say, while we're talking about things we wanted to happen in this film, I was thinking one of the things I wanted was to get more of an impression that John Wick likes killing people. I don't know why. I was just thinking that because there was a moment where I sort of thought I saw him crack a smile, and I was thinking that might be an interesting idea to explore. The idea that obviously it's a sympathetic, his story of revenge, but then, he might just be he's probably actually a psychopath who does like killing people. So I don't know. And I didn't really explore that. And that was just, my little pet thing I wanted to see. But the thing is, obviously this film, it's got some good moments, which mostly, for example, the emotional, sadness of seeing a dog be killed, and then you get the catharsis to that. And then on top of that, it's slightly more interesting, and we've kind of already been through that. The way it's not just, your standard, this guy's really evil and therefore I hate him because he did this thing with a malice and forethought. It's more like this guy was just a stupid, arrogant kid, but sometimes being a stupid, arrogant kid, is going to cost you your lives, and there's take no prisoners in this game. And that's slightly more interesting, and obviously it's interesting that Theon, he doesn't, continue to antagonize him. He kind of gets a bit like, oh no, I don't really want to die, and then he gets killed anyway, and it's like, oh, that's bad, but good at the same time. It's like, it's nuanced, and I like that, and that does put it above action films. And like I say, even though I did say some problems I had with action films, that is, I think, compared to my perfect action film. So my perfect action film, I think, would try and be just the best it could be while still also having loads of bombastic action. But of course, you can have films that are completely realistic and believable, but then the action can't be bombastic. You can have films which aren't at all believable and the action can be really bombastic. I think ideally, a perfect action film would be able to be the perfect amount of both believable and bombastic, where it's like really exciting. This film went slightly more in the bombastic direction and slightly less in the believable direction. Having said that, it still did get a pretty good, degree of both of them. And it was certainly better than most action films. And with that said, I'm going to, where are we going to put this? I'm thinking a 7. I'm probably thinking a low 7. And I think I'm going to put it above The Descent. The Descent, of course, being a film that was famous for using all sorts of fancy, cameras and sets. And, it is generally considered to be quite a good example of doing its genre right is The Descent. And below The Avengers. The Avengers, of course, is another action-packed, fun film. But The Avengers also has a bit more going on. And therefore, I'm putting it between those two in my number 24 slot. John Wick, Chapter 1, even.
Yes.
And
well, I decided to bump it up to a 7.5. That is going to be my rating. So, yes. There we go. Okay, next up, Michael, we'll move on to John Wick Chapter 2. It's a 2017 American neo-noir action thriller film, again directed by Chad Stahelski, written by Derek Kolstad. Obviously, it's the second installment of the John Wick series. After the first one, stars Keanu Reeves, Common, Lawrence Fishburne, Riccardo Scaramucci, Scamarcio. God. I'm so...
Just give up, Luke.
So
just go to bed.
Ruby Rose, John Leguizamo, and Ian McShane. It was released on February the 10th, 2017, in the United States. And Michael, do you want to have a guess at the budget?
More. What was it last time? So I'm going to go for exactly what I said last time and assume that, because it was slightly less last time, 35 million.
It was 40. 40, okay, so it's a decent guess. Again, but obviously the box office now.
100 million.
No. It's a lot higher. Well, it's not a lot higher. It's 171 million. So yeah, again, the box office, it always lets you down, Michael. It always lets you down.
Yeah. I'm just bad at predicting how much money things make. And maybe that's why I wouldn't make a good studio executive. Maybe people wouldn't want to see my Mortal Kombat film.
No, I mean, Mortal Kombat, I think, isn't it popular in China?
Yeah, you know what? No, yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, I think they should do it because, at the end of the day, Mortal Kombat is just an opportunity to make a well-received, or not necessarily well, but make a competent action film and have instant marketability. And all you need to do is not have some stupid, lame fantasy plot and just make it a bit more gritty and a bit more violent, and boom, great, everyone loves it.
That's the thing with video game movies. As long as the fans are going to turn out to see it, it's a win-win because they're going to turn out. So you're going to make money, and if it's good, then people are like, "Oh wow, it's actually good." It just needs to be 60% of Rotten Tomatoes, and people are like, "Hey, this isn't shit." Yeah,
it go down as the best video game movie in history.
So anyway, Michael, did you like John Wick Chapter 2?
Yes.
Yes, I also liked John Wick Chapter 2. It's very, very similar to the first one.
Look, you know what? I liked the first one, but I hated this one.
That would be a really a weird take.
That would be a hot. Yeah. That would be a lukewarm take.
How many nitpicks do you have?
5.
I have. Do I have 4 again? No, I have 5.
Oh, what do we do? Oh, we flip a coin, don't we? And I never have my coin on me. So what I've got here, is something that's used to hold up my blind, and it fell off. I honestly didn't mean to get it to fall off, but basically there's a hook end that's pointing up, and there's a bit where the hook end isn't pointing up. So are you going to guess hook end pointing up or hook end pointing down, Luke?
Let's go hook end pointing up.
I think that's more likely because I think it fell on the floor. But yeah, hook end is pointing up,
yes,
Luke.
So you go first.
Which is... Wait, hold a minute. Do you want... I would think you would want to go first.
No, I'm choosing you to go first. Okay,
fine, yeah. That's fine. I would have chosen me to go first too. So
well, then we're all happy then, aren't we?
Okay, so here's my thing, This one makes me laugh. Peter Stormare, I don't know what his character... Abraham, I think was his name, or Abram. Peter Stormare seems to think that giving the car back to John Wick wouldn't even be worth a shot. He's he's not saying hey, contact John Wick and just say, hey, I'm willing to give you this car and we'll have no problem. And he's like, no, it's not worth it. Literally, all his men are dying. And I would assume, these men, they're not completely 100% replaceable, I would assume. I would assume you kind of, you want to keep your men around. You don't just want hundreds of your men to die in one night. And at the end, he's like, hey, we can't just we can't let we can't just give him the car and then John Wick shows up at the end to Peter Stormare, and he just pours a drink and he's like, peace. And Peter Stormare's like, peace. And you have to think at that moment, Peter Stormare's thinking, oh, I guess he isn't just gonna murder everyone. He's perfectly happy to just take his car and call it peace. And you just think, yeah, Peter Stormare. Like, did you not think that was a possibility? Like, why was he so confident that John Wick would want to murder him and his entire organization, even though they didn't really have anything to do with it? Why was he that confident that he couldn't have just gone, hey, take your car?
He's clearly paranoid, Michael. It's why his brother got further in him than him in life. He's so worried and paranoid about everything.
Yeah, silly Abram. Okay, and then we've got so this is an example of me, and to be honest, I could probably put this under the plot, but or under action. But when he like says to John Wick, hey, come outside and blah blah blah, I won't have any problem. If he wanted to kill him, then he should have just had his men like say like, hey, when I come out, if I give you like a little clue, like a little hand gesture, just take out all your guns and just shoot John Wick. And then that would have been a good bit of planning ahead. Instead, he had to do the old, say goodbye to him, then go and pick up a grenade launcher and fire it into his house. It seems like a lot of effort when he could have, bit of planning ahead would have, kind of like, hey, if this John Wick guy doesn't go for this deal, which he seemed to be prepared for that possibility since he brought the grenade launcher along anyway. He could have been like, hey, like maybe have an assassin with a sniper, and be like, hey, if you get shot on him, if I, do a little hand gesture, that means that he's betrayed me and I hate him and I want him dead. So there we go.
I was thinking he might not have wanted to kill him.
Well, I was thinking that too, but the thing is that explosion, I mean, maybe he was like preferring just the 50% odd of killing him, or like slightly more than 50% odds of killing him. So that's why he fired the grenade launcher, because it was like, well, it might kill him, but maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, then that's fate. So maybe we'll say that. Now this one's a good one. It's the fat guy indestructible trope. So there's a trope which I've seen around before, which is that fat people, you can stab them, you can cut them with a katana, you can shoot them in all sorts of places. If you shot around, somebody like that before, the fat people, they just keep on going like tanks. They don't even care. You can shoot them just in the chest repeatedly. Their flubber will just absorb it, and they'll punch you, and they'll just break you over their knee. And of course, I was not going to bring this up, and then literally John Wick shoots him in the head, and he gets up groaning afterwards, and John Wick has to shoot him in the head again, because apparently fat people are tanks.
Yes. Yeah, I have noticed that as well.
Yes. And then this one's another one. People seem to not really acknowledge the fighting, like, unless people are literally shooting, like, very directly, then people will start screaming. But, like, for example, and it's also not just the fighting, but also, like, these people bleeding. Like, John Wick is bleeding. Nobody says, hey, are you okay? Or, like, the scene when they're fighting on the, in the tube station, the tube, train. Everyone's kind of, like, looking. There is one guy who looks like he's looking at his phone. I don't know what he's doing. Like, I was looking at the background people thinking, like, how are they reacting to this? I could see most people's faces, but then there was one guy looking at his phone. But I was always thinking, like, is that really what you do when two people are having, like, a knife fight? Would you just kind of look at it? I'd kind of, I don't know, maybe stand and, like, brace myself to get out of the way, or, possibly, shout, like, what's going on? But, people are very disinterested. And then, of course, there's the scene when they're firing little sneaky shots at each other with snipers. Oh, sorry, not with snipers, with silencers. Again, like maybe nobody would notice. I would think you'd kind of notice. So there's that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, like maybe people wouldn't react the way I think they would. I would just think if you saw some guy walking around with like blood on his face, you'd be like, oh, excuse me, mate, you're right, Maybe people in New York aren't like that. So I don't know. And then black guy, that's what I wrote. All I know is that he played a character in Stargate SG-1, but he's the guy with the pigeons or the doves, and he's the guy that John Wick goes to see, and he says, what's the number up to now with regard to the John Wick bounty, even though the number has not been increasing incrementally. The number was started at 7 million and has remained at 7 million. Therefore, the sentence, what's the number up to now, doesn't make any sense, since it's not been increasing with, by time. If it would have been like, oh, it's 1 million, and then after a day he put it up to 2 million, and after a day he put it up to 3 million, then he'd be like, what's the number up to now? But it was always 7 million, therefore that statement, what's the number up to now, implies the number has been increasing over time, and it hasn't.
Okay.
See if you can beat those nitpicks.
Okay, some of them were your typical Michael nitpicks there. Some of them were some good points. But anyway, okay, so first one, I'm going to lay out a coincidence nitpick, Michael.
Oh, I love those. Typical
yeah,
nitpick.
I know, exactly. So, just as John comes out of retirement, obviously, I think it's like 2 days later after the events of the first movie, the second movie begins. So,
Yes.
obviously, what does the Italian guy go to John for, Michael?
Because his father has died, and his sister has taken over the thingamabob.
Yes, so obviously his father has died recently. And so, as soon, just as John comes out of it...
I don't even know if it's 2 months, by the way.
I said 2 days.
Oh, sorry, did you say 2 days? Okay, well, in that case, I misheard you. So,
2 days. John comes out of retirement, and then this Italian guy dies immediately. So it's like, I can get John Wick out of retirement. How convenient for me, because he has come out of retirement. Yes. So there you go.
I was thinking it's even like the fact that literally as he's finishing recovering his gun chest in concrete, the doorbell rings. Literally, he's just finished. He's like,
yes, exactly.
And it's a good thing it didn't finish while he was in the middle of it, because if concrete dries quite quickly, so he'd answer the door and be like, hey, I'm sorry, this looks important, but I've got some concrete and it's drying, so I really need to make sure it's all smoothed out.
Okay, so next up, it's an action. In the first action scene, John Wick gets taken out by a taxi, and he's just able to get up and start kicking people in the very next shot. Yeah,
he gets run over at least twice.
His legs would be fractured. He shouldn't be able to walk around and just start kicking people. Definitely not. If you ever played football, you ever get kicked in the leg,
or slide tackled.
It hurts for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, studs up.
So if you get hit by a taxi, and you're not going to be able to get up and start doing your action moves. Next up, what is with all the 1950s technology in this movie, Michael? You got the old timey phones and the old operators. All those women in that room.
Oh yeah, the operators were strange. I don't understand the point.
It just seems like they're trying to be half classic Bond, and then half modern thrill. I don't know why.
Maybe these guys have a sense of nostalgia. I found something out the other day. Victor Von Doom.
Yes. This
is when you say yes intimately. He actually, I never knew this, but the country he rules, which as you know is called Latveria, is forcibly made to live their life like they live in a medieval feudal kingdom. So the entire country, which is a microstate, is basically artificially made to seem like it's in the Middle Ages. So the Doctor Doom lives in a castle, and there's all these old cobbled streets leading out. And I was thinking, why do we never see that in the Fantastic Four films? That sounds cool. Just this crazy guy who makes people live as if they live in the Middle Ages. But no, instead it's always crap.
Okay. Good point. So next up.
Yeah, but do you remember what my point was there, Luke? That's
no, I don't. But I don't care. So next up, Lawrence Fishburne. He laughs on the balcony to John Wick, and then it cuts to him downstairs in the cellar, and he's still laughing. So you can only assume he was just laughing for 2 minutes straight, just
it's
walking down the stairs, laughing, walking through the corridor, laughing until he eventually gets to the room.
It's like the in The Simpsons where Mr. Burns remembers that time when he crippled an Irishman, and he's laughing at it for days. He's like, "Ooh, who will provide for me little uns?"
Oh yeah, what was it? I was like, I'll get you. Oh, sorry, Master Burns.
Mr. Burns, continue. What was I laughing at? Oh yes, that crippled Irishman.
Okay, next up, and this is just a general nitpick on the whole assassin. Nobody does business in the Continental thing. That rule would not be followed in the real world. No chance.
Well, Luke, maybe assassins are slightly more honourable than you. I know you wouldn't follow it. You'd be killing everyone.
Assassins, you think about them, they're sneaky, they're deceptive, they get away with things, well, that's the whole job. You can't impose rules on these people, especially rules that restrict them from doing what they're so good at. It's not going to happen. There's in every one of these continental hotels, assassins would be shooting people all the time. No chance this rule is enforced properly. No chance. So
that's very pessimistic of you. Remember in the Grand Budapest Hotel when they all just start shooting at each other from across the
that'd be every day inside the Continental. Yeah. Okay. And anyway, Michael, what are we doing next? Oh yeah, the plot. So I'll just explain the plot quickly. So it follows hitman John Wick, who goes on the run after a bounty is placed on him. That's not a very good summary, basically. So obviously he...
Yeah, that's a crap summary.
Read it off Wikipedia. So...
What? You just read it off Wikipedia, Luke? When were you planning on telling me this?
So Santino D'Antonio forces Wick to perform an assassination on his sister, and obviously his sister dies. She commits suicide, and so he's happy, Santini, but then he decides to put out a hit on John Wick because he wants to double cross him, because he wants to tie up loose ends, because he doesn't want to seem like he killed his sister. So that's what he does, and then it's just the rest of the movie is John Wick trying to avoid being killed and killing Santino D'Antonio.
Yeah. I just had a thought just then as you were describing it, and it occurs to me, presumably the reason he wanted to kill John Wick is because the news that he put the hit out on his sister could seriously, damage him politically or socially or whatever else. And therefore you kind of have to think, like, at no point, like, it might not have been useful for John Wick to bring up this information to somebody, to say, like, oh, by the way, this guy put because presumably, I mean, if it's sufficiently important to Mr. Sanatuni, whatever his name is, to, kill John Wick and potentially get into a conflict with this guy who's considered to be a really, big, scary deal, then surely, it implies that it would be very serious if this information got leaked. And yet, to be honest, he's pretty lucky in that even though John Wick does escape, he never actually does leak this information. So apart from the fact where he's dead at the end, things worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, things did work out pretty well for him.
I envy him.
Like, that's the thing. It's a nice twist, I guess. It's like, oh yes, so the guy who he did the deed for is now trying to kill him, so he's got to go on the run. I'll just say in general, this movie, it's more complex to start with. You have these markers that are introduced, like you owe a debt to somebody if they helped you, and also you have the crime bosses, these international crime lords. There's 12 of them, and there's a coronation for one of them, which apparently, can you imagine just like this event happening in real life and like all the tweets about it? Like, oh, they're coronating a new crime lord tonight in Rome. Yeah, that's what all the influencers would want to be.
Yeah, that's true. You get the old Logan Pauls there, the Jake Pauls, the Rice Guns.
That's the thing. I was expecting it to be like a quiet ceremony, but there's like literally like 1,000 people there in the fucking band. Like, do all these people know what's happening? Does the band know what's happening as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like, how like Al Capone was kind of a minor celebrity. Yeah. Maybe it's that deal.
Oh yeah, but they're meant to try and be secret. Maybe they just don't care about secrecy. Yeah. So, but yeah, basically it's simple. This plot, kind of like the first one. Just a bunch of guys go after John Wick because he's killed this guy's sister. I think it's not as entertaining as the first movie because the plot is he's just literally trying to survive, while in the first one he had a mission, and obviously he's trying to kill Santini, that's his. I guess you could say that's his mission, but like he's only doing that because Santini's trying to kill him. So yeah, it's not as interesting as the first. He's not as focused and as driven. Like, he's just understandably doing what anyone would do in this situation. Like, oh, somebody's trying to put a hit out on me, or somebody has put a hit on me. I'm going to try and survive, and I'm going to try and kill the guy who's trying to kill me. So yeah, just not as entertaining as the first plot.
Yes, I would generally agree, especially regarding plot on its own. But I do have a few kind of like general things which I found interesting about the plot. So the first one is, I think it's kind of interesting that John Wick, he's really in the wrong in the first part of the film because he essentially, I assume, asked for a favor from somebody, and it was a favor that person didn't have to give. Mr. Santorino, he didn't have to give this favor, and for all we know, that favor might have been a big thing.
Well, it was the impossible task, which was referenced. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it was a big favor, and John Wick said, in return for you doing this favor for me, I'll do a favor for you. And Santorino, is his name Santorino? I'm just going to say his name Santorino. And Santorino shows up and he's like, I want you to do this thing for me. And John Wick's like, no. And again, I mean, like, here's the thing. It's one of the reasons, I guess, why they're trying to establish this idea that this assassin's world lives with a degree of honor. And you know what? I mean, yeah, fair enough. Okay, there's honor there. And he should have upheld it. And obviously, eventually he ends up, what's the guy's name who runs the Continental?
Winston.
Winston. Yeah, and then Winston basically says, "Hey, you've got to do this, otherwise you're breaking the rules." And yeah, and I thought that was kind of like interesting, and it's like, he's obviously not really in the right, and that has implications. And then also I was thinking, like, it's kind of crazy. All he really needed to do was be like, "Okay, I'll do this one thing, and then I'm out." And in theory, like, you would think, because he's like, he really doesn't want to do it at first. He's like, "I really, really don't want to do it." And you just think, well, hold on a minute, for you. Like, it's pretty easy to kill people. Just do one more thing, and you're out, and then you're done.
Well, you're right.
It. Maybe he's just like, it's just one more. Maybe that's what he's thinking.
He's obviously in the wrong at the start, but like that's what makes him interesting. Like he's not.
I agree. I agree. It does make him more interesting. Also, I want to say, thank God the dog didn't die again. When the house got blown up, I was thinking, oh God, the dog's been killed. And no, the dog hadn't been killed, so that's good, isn't it?
That is good. That was a.
Otherwise, it would have been personal.
10 out of 10 movie, though. Yeah.
Yes.
So I did think. Well, do you have anything else good to say about the plot? Because I don't really have anything good.
I have one other thing to say about the plot, which, again, to be honest, it could be related to action. It was the thing I said that if I didn't say this, I'd have nothing to say about the plot. But I said that I'd like to see more preparing, and obviously slightly more of the plot in this time is spent on, like, him preparing, particularly in the first scene where he's, or not first scene, but, like, the first major action scene, where he's looking at the blueprints and he's kind of working it all out. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's... I guess it kind of, was slightly enjoyable for me because I was like, okay, so that's how he's going to do it. He's got a plan. So it made it slightly more believable to me that he was able to take everything out, and that's good. And also, actually, I did want to say, I cringed so hard at the wrist slitting scene. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just more squeamish about that kind of stuff, but it was just like,
by me.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that. But you know what, Luke? I'm not a sick, twisted psychopath, so I actually didn't enjoy seeing somebody open the veins in their wrists.
Well, I guess you and I are different then. So the plot, like, I've got several problems with this plot. Well, I say several. There's only like two major ones.
That is technically several, Luke. So
so like the first bit is it's great. Why is John Wick so against killing the sister, Michael?
He says that I don't really remember. Is it something like he doesn't want to do it anymore? He just says when
they're in the art museum, it's impossible.
He does say that, doesn't he?
And then, how does he kill her? By literally walking into her room.
Yes.
And not only that, she kills herself for him. Which, I know, obviously, she only does that because she knows he's going to kill her, but yeah. It's not an impossible task, Michael. And the only reason he's in this fucking gunfight at when he comes out is because Common recognizes him. Common sees John Wick and then puts two and two together. And he's like, oh shit, he's just killed, whatever the lady's name was. So yeah, like it could have been like the easiest job of his life. He just literally walks in, kills her, walks out, job done. So I really don't get why he thought it was impossible and he was so against it. Kind of undercuts, his
everything. It makes him like an idiot. Makes him like a weakling.
It undercuts his resistance to doing it in the first place. And also, so obviously the hit gets put out on him, and I never knew there were so many assassins in New York. Like, this fucking city is filled with assassins. You can't go a block without bumping into one. Like, everyone's in it right now. Like, it's a new podcast. Well, I guess it was the podcast back in 2017. Everyone's got one. Everyone's an assassin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, those are my two big issues. Like, there's too many assassins in New York, and it's not an impossible task, as John Wick proved, killing this sister. So yeah, that's that.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right. They are. Yeah.
Quite big flaws in the plot.
I also kind of find it weird that, like, okay, here's my question. So you know how you were like, oh, John Wick has lots of money because of all the assassinating stuff he's done. I always think, like, well, couldn't he put out a sizable hit himself on, like, Santorino?
Yeah, maybe. Shit.
So I was kind of thinking that,
he wasn't that smart, so maybe that just didn't occur to him.
Yeah. Poor old John. To be honest, Keanu Reeves, I guess it's because of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I just associate him with being dumb. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, he just has a really dumb face. I don't know if he is dumb, but he just always looks so confused. The beard helps though.
But apparently he speaks multiple languages. He speaks Italian, Russian, and sign language seemingly. So there we go. He is in fact very smart.
The beard does help. He doesn't look as stupid and confused. Without the beard though, he definitely does. Also another, I don't know if there's an issue with the plot, but I would have liked it if Cassian, who is played by Common, Cassian Endor, that well-known character. I would have liked it. Okay, so he's obviously trying to kill John Wick because he killed his boss. But it would have been cool if, when he realised a hit was being put out on John Wick, and he put two and two together, and he's like, that must have been his brother.
Oh.
That must have been his brother. Oh shit! So his brother just used him, and now he's trying to kill him. I shouldn't.
Yeah, but you do mean her brother.
Her brother. Sorry. He should have been like,
it's fine. You know what?
Shit, he's being used. Like, I shouldn't really be going after John Wick. Like, I should be going after the guy who's actually responsible for his death. And then he fucking betrayed John Wick as well. Like, he should be mad at the brother. And maybe he is, but he should be more mad at the brother than John Wick, I think. And I think it would be good.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a good point. Team up.
He was like, yeah, you know, I'm putting that stuff behind us. We're going to kill Santino. You know, and it could have been really, you know, cool. You know,
a good old team up moment.
Where they like in Predator, you know, when Schwarzenegger sees Carl Weathers, and like they do that old the high five, and then their guns are shown, and so good. Yeah, could have been like that. But yeah, no, I just think that would have been a good move to do, because it would have been a nice little twist. Because the thing is, well, I had watched 1.5 movies of John Wick just killing people by himself. Obviously, if you just saw this movie, the second movie on its own, you'd only watch like half a movie of John Wick doing that. But it'd be nice to see John Wick team up with somebody who's equally,
that's actually true. Yeah.
As matched or equally as good as him, and a good match for him.
Yeah. And
then both going to town on a bunch of bad guys. That would have been nice.
I agree. No, yeah, that would be really interesting. Yeah, and I think it would also kind of deal with a lot of the problems with John Wick seeming a bit unbelievably OP.
Yeah, it would have freshened stuff up as well.
It would have been a gale time for everyone.
I would like to see that. Unfortunately, they decided not to go down that path. Anyway, so do you have anything else to say on the plot? No. And onto the action then, I guess.
Let me double check.
So the action scenes, I mean, what we said in the first movie can be applied to this movie. Like, the action scenes, it's just the same. Like, they're very, very good. Still, there's moments when you're like, wait, that guy, why is he so close to John Wick? You know, especially at the beginning when everybody's trying to kill him and they've only got knives. Yeah, so some of the action scenes are really good. Points of them aren't that great. Just like the first movie.
Yeah. I have some broad comments on action. I don't know if you have any other broad comments on action, but this is my first one. This is something I noticed more. I could have brought this up in the first one, but I'm bringing it up now. I was talking about this. I was watching something with my dad. It was an action film, and I was thinking about how you never really see, like, henchmen are always inexplicably loyal until the end. Like, every single henchman in this is just, like, really, really keen to get in there and fight John Wick. Like, it's just like he's got some personal investment. And you think, really, you know, like, there's a scene where a guy gets, you know, punched and he's on the ground, and John Wick is walking away and he cruises to a gun and obviously gets shot. And you think to yourself, nah, you'd be like, screw this. I mean, and that's the thing, like, you never get a scene where, like, at the end, somebody realizes that John Wick has just killed, like, 50 people, and it's just them left, and they say, hey, you know, this is just my job. I don't want to die for this because I don't care, so please don't kill me. Because that's what I do, and I think that's what, like, most people do. Like, it's always surprising to me, like, you never see, I mean, it's not really surprising, because, you know, I guess they're just mindless cannon fodder, and they don't really have any, you know, they're not written like real people. But if they were written like real people, they'd say, hey, you know, I actually don't really want to fight. They'd kind of be reluctant. None of them seem reluctant. They're all, like, completely 100% on board with fighting this guy who has this reputation of literally just killing everybody effortlessly. They're just like, well, I know the last 10,000 people who've tried to kill him failed, including professional assassins, but I think I've really got this, you know. I've fired a gun before. And, yes.
Fair enough. So yeah, I just have a point to make as well on the action scene, a specific point. That fight when he's fighting the lesbian. I don't know if she's a lesbian, but, you know, just... yes, the deaf woman, Ruby Rose. That's the actress's name. It's too quick, Michael. So this Ruby Rose has been following John Wick throughout the movie, you know, stalking him. She's played up as, you know, this important character, and John Wick kills her, like, within 30 seconds. And it's like, I was looking forward to this fight, and now it's just over.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, poor.
So that's a negative.
She's not good.
No. That's the thing. We said before, like, this movie is similar to the first, and I don't think I can add anything about this movie.
I have a handful of more points, basically just more examples of what I've already pointed out. But
I'll do it
okay. So basically, I'd like to see this guy John Wick. He's supposed to be this fantastic assassin. He can't even notice a car driving towards him when he's in Italy, and he's walking along. There's no distractions, and Common basically drives a car right into him and he gets hit, and you think if you're an assassin, and I'm supposed to believe you're incredibly skilled, I mean, maybe you won't notice somebody sneaking up on you. Fine, you've got to notice a car driving towards you. If you can't notice a car on your worst day, then you're not an assassin, buddy. So that's my first point. Second point, okay. So this just goes back to my main problem, that there are just so many ways where like people could kill him, and it wouldn't really be that hard, especially in this scenario, because there's loads of people who John Wick doesn't necessarily know will be after him. Meaning you can literally walk really close to him. He's not going to know. Like, he clearly, because there's like 50,000 assassins, he clearly doesn't know all of them by face. So you can just walk right up to him, walk past him, turn around, and he's not got eyes in the back of his head, so you can just shoot him. And here's the thing, okay. This is the big one. There's a woman with a violin. John Wick walks past her. She gets her gun. This is a professional assassin, Luke. And at first I was going to say she didn't take the time to aim for his head, which, you'd think is like obvious. But then apparently, like, it seems as if he wasn't even, like, I was assuming he was wearing body armor. It seems like he wasn't even wearing body armor, which means she couldn't point a gun at somebody walking away with their back to him, to her, and just kill him. She seemed to get one shot in his side, in possibly the one place where it's least likely to kill him, not even in his chest area, not even got a punctured lung, not even in his head. And then I guess she fired multiple times, but he seems to only have one bullet wound, so she missed the other two shots. I want to know who's been hiring stormtroopers as assassins.
I mean, these do sound like nitpicks, kind of.
You know what? I mean, here's the thing, though. It comes back to the fundamental thing, which is, I said previously, you've got this balance between big bombastic action scenes where there's loads of people fighting and there's loads of action scenes, and the believability. And the problem is, you have a film where every assassin in New York is after John Wick. And the problem is, that sounds like, oh yeah, that would be really exciting. Every assassin's after him. But then the problem becomes, well, hold on a minute, how do you justify him not just dying immediately? And the answer there is not so much John Wick is absolutely fantastic. It's partially that John Wick is absolutely fantastic. I mean, he kills a bunch of people with a pencil, but a significant portion of why he doesn't just die is because all the other assassins aren't actually that good. And then you kind of think, well, is that, if the whole thing is like, oh yeah, all the assassins in New York are after him, okay, great, or New York City. But then it's like, well, hold on a minute, okay, so they're not very good, so actually it doesn't really mean as much that they're all after him. So it's kind of, I do think it's like quite a serious problem. If you're watching this reaction, I need to be like, oh yeah, this is a serious threat. And it's like,
fair enough. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yeah, you brought me back in, Michael.
Yeah, good. Well, I knew I'd get you. Hook, line, and sinker.
Anyway, do you want to conclude now?
Yes, let's conclude now.
So I'll go first then. So John Wick Chapter 2, a very short review here, but that's because basically it's very similar to the first. I don't think the plot's as good. And also, maybe you could knock it a bit for just being the same and not doing anything that much differently in terms of the style, or just the general. I don't know. Just it's exactly the same in many, many ways, from the action scenes to John Wick's just what he's trying to accomplish, killing a bad guy. But yeah, he doesn't. The motivation for the first one is better. So I am going to give this, Michael, a 7 out of 10.
I think I will also give it a, it's kind of on the threshold, so I might actually just say it's technically a 6, but I'll probably rank it below Slumdog Millionaire and above The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water, of course, being a film that was not as entertaining as it could have been. Whereas this, I mean, everything I said about it kind of still stands. It doesn't, I pretty much summed it up when I said, there's this balance between, is the film really exciting and really action-packed, but is it believable? And obviously the problem is, if it's so action-packed that it becomes unbelievable, then the fact that it's action-packed becomes So, but having said that, I mean, it's still a very similar film, and therefore I'm putting it 3 spaces below John Wick Chapter 1. Okay. So The Descent and Slumdog Millionaire are between them. Good stuff.
Should we do our predictions for John Wick 3? What do you think, Michael?
Actually, I wanted to look up the ratings for John Wick 1 and John Wick 2.
It's like 87 and 89.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think it's going to be around the 80s, but let's say 80, 85. There we go. We'll just go for the odd numbers in the upper 80s.
You know what? Because it's got that scene of him riding on a horse and shooting somebody. I'm going to go
riding on a horse. You can whip your Porsche. I've been in the valley. You ain't been off your porch.
I'm going for 91%.
Oh, so you're going the same thing as me, but, the same logic of the odd numbers going up in increments of 2.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the thing is, the films have ostensibly, according to Rotten Tomatoes, been getting better. Obviously, we did just both rank this one lower, but, whatever. Yeah. What do we know?
Yeah, what do we know? So, yeah, I think that is fair then. So, yeah, we're done. By the way, just to let you know, Arsenal reached the Europa League final, Michael.
Yeah, I know.
So,
and that's why we're going to be in the Champions League.
And Chelsea did as well. So you'll be playing Chelsea in the final. And,
yeah, well, I think we'll probably lose.
And obviously with Tottenham and Liverpool also in the final. It's the first time ever we have in the 2 European finals teams from just one country, which is England, proving that we are the greatest country that the world has ever seen.
Yeah, hopefully we get some of that sweet coefficient.
Oh yeah, our coefficient is going to skyrocket after this, and obviously that's the important thing here. That's what we're all rooting for.
Yeah, that's what matters. More than these stupid films we talk about, what really matters to us is the coefficient.
Yeah, the coefficient is...
coefficient uber alles.
That is the source of national pride. That determines which country is the best. But yes, anyway, do you want to wrap up, Michael?
So that was a good film, wasn't it? I mean, surely... Wait, what do I say to wrap up? Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, of course, I forgot that completely. So thank you, that's been a discussion of this film. And next week, we are going to be looking at a little film called Aladdin.
Yes, Aladdin.
The Disney version, of course, to celebrate the release of the live action Will Smith.
That is going to be a fun one. That is going to be a fun one. So who have you been, Michael?
Michael.
And I've been Luke. Thank you for listening. We've been selecting and reflecting on John Wick 1 and 2 because of John Wick 3 Parabellum. We'll see you next week for Aladdin. Goodbye.
Goodbye.